Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello. Or as we say in South Africa, hello. It's really wonderful to be here. This is my first time working with Comic Relief, and they asked me to join. They said, Trevor, we'd really love you to join Comic Relief. And I said, I'd love to do it. Do I have to come to the UK? But then I found out that there were actually projects in South Africa that I got to take part in, which was really wonderful for me for two reasons. One, because obviously it's close to my heart. I grew up in a township. But more importantly, I didn't have to fly, which was really great, because flying has been particularly stressful for me in the recent months, mostly because of the Ebola crisis. As a South African traveler, flying anywhere in the world has been extremely stressful because there's been extra stringent measures that have been placed on us. You know, flying into America particularly has been the worst. You go through different lines, there's extra checks, you know, especially if you come from what they consider a high-risk Ebola region, which is apparently the whole continent. We're all coughing on each other in one big hut. I don't really blame them, because look, the truth is most Americans don't know much about South Africa. So, well, they don't know much about Africa as a whole. Most of them don't know much about anything, but still, like, it's just weird, because you would land in America and the questions they would ask you at the border control would be so interesting. Like, you'd get there and the man would look at me. As soon as he'd see I was from South Africa, he'd be like, "Sir, South Africa, have you been in contact with Ebola?" Like, my answer would be, yes. Next stop, Disney World. Would I really still be traveling had I been in contact with one of the most deadly diseases on the planet? Is that, what type of person do you think, oh, I've paid for that trip, I'm going, even if it kills everybody? Like, why would I do something like that? And the way they would ask it as well made it sound like Ebola was a distant relative of mine, like a cousin, or, have you been in contact with Ebola? You know, yeah, I spoke to him last week. He's doing well, thanks for asking, eh? Such a strange world. It was honestly one of the worst trips I ever took. Because what happened is we flew in. So I was flying to Los Angeles, and because of that, we had to stop over in Atlanta and change planes. And when we got off our plane, we went off and we got into another plane. And when we did, they made an announcement as we got onto the plane. They told the other passengers that we were from a South African plane. And so they were going to be spraying the cabin for their safety. But they said this as we walked on. The air hostess came on and she was like,
"Ladies and gentlemen, please note we've got some passengers joining us from a South African flight, and due to the Ebola crisis right now, we're just going to spray the cabin. It shouldn't be too harmful. You can cover your eyes and nose if you think it'll harm you, but it should be okay, and we'll be on our way shortly. Thank you very much."
We walk on to that. That's our introduction. As we walk on the plane, us walking over, hello, hello. It was like a scene from Forrest Gump. Everyone was like, "Can't sit here, can't sit here." Just like all of us. It was honestly one of the worst flights I've ever taken in my life. It was so tense. I coughed once. The plane shook. There's one guy who couldn't even hold it. I couldn't hold it any longer, and he couldn't hold it because I was like, and he was like, "Ebola! Ebola!" I was like, calm down, calm down. It's just AIDS, calm down. You're safe for now. Just the stress. Everybody. We landed, finally, in Los Angeles, but still we weren't allowed to disembark. The air hostess came back on to make another announcement. She said,
"Ladies and gentlemen, please stay in your seats before we can disembark the plane. We're just going to have a quick safety procedure, checking health and safety officials coming on board to make sure everything is up to standard, and we should be on our way shortly. Thank you very much."
And so we had to sit there while a health and safety official came on board the plane. And his job was, using a list of African passengers, he was going to go around and then scan each passenger and make sure they were healthy. And what he had a laser thermometer, and he'd go to each African, point it at our heads, and then basically the way it worked on the thermometer is if you're very hot, then you've got Ebola. I think that's how it works. So walk down, scan the people, walk down, scan the people. And I don't know why he did this. He came down to my row, walked all the way to me, scanned the people around me, looked at me, and then just shook his head and walked away. Like, he didn't, almost like I wasn't African enough or something. He was just like, "Oh, no. And then he scanned the people around me, and he moved on. So because of this, a few rows later, he was short one name on the list, which was mine. And so he calls the air hostess over, and he's like, I got a name, I don't know. And she's like, "Are you sure? Did you check?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't know who it is, I can't see who." And there's commotion, and it's growing, and it's growing. And now I think they're talking about me. I'm pretty certain, but I'm not gonna be the guy who's like, "Excuse me, I think I'm the Ebola threat. I'm not gonna say that." So I'm just listening while this is it. And the commotion's growing, it keeps growing, so the whole plane starts listening, everyone gets involved. And then, at its height, at its height, there was a man 3 rows behind us of Middle Eastern descent. He had a big beard, very traditional regalia on. And I'll never forget this. He leaned into the middle of their conversation with no hint of irony whatsoever. He just leaned in and he was like,
Excuse me, pardon me. You probably want to check that gentleman over there. That guy, something suspicious about him, I notice. You want to check him there. Yeah, that guy was coughing.
I was like, really? Et tu, Ahmed? How the wheel has turned, my friend. You forget there was a time when Muslims were the black people of the skies. And yet now you have turned on me. I thought he would be on my side. I thought he would relate. I thought he would be like, don't worry, I know how it feels, I got you. Instead he was like, enjoy being under the bus. It was a stressful time. But coming into the UK has been a bit nicer, you know. I guess people are a bit more informed. Not that it's easy, don't get me wrong. Flying into the UK is a lot of stress. You have one of the most stressful border controls I've ever come into in my life. They ask you so many questions, question upon question upon question. I've got the right paperwork, I've got the visa, comic relief. The guy looks at me, he's like, so you're a comedian? So yeah, he's like, you don't look funny. I just woke up and what does that even mean? And he kept on asking me the questions, and at one point I stopped and I said, look man, I've given you the paperwork, I've told you why I'm here, why don't you believe me? And he said, well look, the truth is, we can't just believe everybody that comes into the UK. We can't just believe that you're gonna do what you say you're here to do. That doesn't make sense. You might do something totally different. And I was like, yeah, fair enough, that makes sense. I just wish as Africans we'd thought of that when the British arrived. They'd have served us well. Yeah. Hey, buddy! What is that flag for? Oh, we're just going to wave it in your country. Come on in. You guys have been fantastic. Thanks so much for having me. Have a great night.